Hey guys, thanks for joining us for this fourth episode in Season 3 of Good Questions with Cameron Dole. Special guest on this episode includes singer-songwriter Carter Lybrand, going to be talking about his debut single, I'll Be Right Here, along with his upcoming music, tour dates, and more. We'll also visit with country singing legend T. Graham Brown. Got a new album, Bare Bones, that's available. We'll also talk about a new autobiography, a soul album with Sam Moore, Tanya Tucker, Wynonna, and more. And we'll also have our monthly visit with our good friend, Meathead Goldwyn. We'll talk corned beef, pastrami, plus we'll talk about his new rubs and sauces that are available now. Of course, if you would, please take the time to subscribe, comment, leave some feedback, check out the shop, and of course, share with your friends. Now, a recent poll asked people if they'd type faster on a computer keyboard or a phone. And 66% of people said they're faster on a computer, while 21% claimed their typing skills were better on a phone. Not surprisingly, the results were different based on age. For people aged 50 and up, more than 70% said they type faster on a computer, less than 15% said they're faster on a phone. Now for Gen Z, age 18 to 25, 46% say they type faster on a phone, and 37% said computer keyboard. We've got singer, songwriter, veteran, a little bit of everything we're going to have a chance to delve into today. Carter Lybrand with us today. And first off, Carter, I appreciate you taking the time, brother.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. So I think that worked out for both of us on that end.
That works out all right. Now, Carter, tell us, when did you know that music had something for you? Was it early in life, or was it maybe a little later in life for you to see that realization?
Well, I mean, as far as, I grew up, my family, had a family band. My grandparents were in a band called the Country Drifters. And, we would sit around, watch the Opry, and country music was just a big part of my life growing up. And I always knew that, I had a love for music. And I guess it didn't really manifest as like, maybe I should do something with this. I won a talent show overseas. I was in Kuwait on New Year's Day. We had just got out of Iraq and got in there, and I played and I won the thing, and I didn't expect to. And everybody was just like, man, you ought to try and do something with this. And I was like, you know what, maybe they're right. So that's kind of what led me to think about, at least it created the thought to go out and maybe try to make a living doing it. So
now the new single that's out about now, I'll Be Right Here. Where did this one come from for you personally?
Well, for me, I was very opposed, and I will say, I wasn't a writer on this song, and I was kind of opposed for a while to actually doing any, because I wanted to do all my own stuff, and my producer sat down and he was like, man, he goes, I really think that we could do something with you and your story, as far as this goes. So, I mean, I kind of fell in love with it. I was able to genuinely just kind of like put myself in those shoes, and there's a place, because for me, I'm a life writer, and I like for things to be about life, kind of like real life events, the things that I've been through. And when I listened to the song, I was like, I could really connect to this. And that's where the song came from. And of course, the music video, if you have an opportunity, go over to YouTube, check that out. It's about my story. When I came home from overseas, I had some problems and some things some demons I had to battle. And like I was telling you earlier, it's about being genuine for me, and it's my story, and I was able to take that song and really make it personal, and that's one thing that I really have so far enjoyed about it, and it's really been a blessing to me. It really has.
And Carter, whenever you think about your story, I mean, how hard is it sometimes to put the thoughts, the feelings, and all that into word to express what you had to go through, kind of re-indoctrinating yourself as well into everyday life?
Right. Well, for me, the veteran community is near and dear to my heart. It always will be. We've lost, several soldiers, especially with this pandemic. It's been a lot harder for mental health. When you get stuck and you're cooped up and you can't go anywhere, a guy's turn to drinking or whatever. And it makes it really difficult. And, we saw a lot of that this year. And that's in some of the veteran programs that I've been through. Those are some of the things, like there are resources out there that are really good resources that a lot of people don't know about. So I try to just want to bring awareness, to mental health and veterans and first responders. I've been a first responder and a veteran. I mean, I've kind of done a little bit of everything, I feel like, in life. And, everyone's like, dude, what didn't you do? I'm like, well, I don't know, but I'm trying to figure that out too. So
trying to cut that list down, right?
Yeah, right. So, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it's really, really about for me too, is being able to, like I said, when somebody else can see somebody going through something, or they see a story, or they say, you know what, okay, well, maybe I can get help, or, maybe I can move forward, or maybe I can move on. And I just kind of want to be, at the end of the day, when it comes to that, I want to be a light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe not just necessarily for the veteran community, for anybody in general. But at the end of the day, I'm just I'd like to make the world a better place. I mean, I know I can't save it, but I can try to do the best I can, I guess. Well, that's pretty much where I'm coming from on that one.
Now, what's it like whenever you got the first feedback on this? How hard is it to take feedback from fans, from listeners, and also from critics, I guess, too, right?
Right. Well, someone's there, there's an old saying about opinions. I can't say exactly what, but you know what I'm saying. But yeah, it's been very interesting for me personally. And, it's kind of like I'm somewhere between Nashville and somewhere between Texas or Oklahoma or Red Dirt or whatever you want to call it. I've kind of got a little bit of both when it comes down to it. But I've got, a lot of people tell me I've got more of a traditional voice. I've had playlisters say, "Oh, you're too country for my country playlist." That one really, that one really gets me somehow. So I mean, it's been very interesting to kind of see how everything plays out, because this was my very first release, and I'm not Luke Combs or Morgan Wallen or any of those guys, but when I see I got 200,000 streams on the song, I feel pretty good about myself. And, cause I never imagined that any of that would happen. And it's been really cool. It's been a lot of fun. And, I've had people say all kinds of stuff, mostly good. I've had a lot of good feedback. Every now and again you get, you're not going to make everybody happy. Welcome to life. This is right. America. Nobody, I'm not living in a hole somewhere. So, not everybody's going to like everything you do. And that's okay. That's fine. That's the way that it is. And at the end of the day, I get to pick a guitar up. I get to go sing and play music, and somehow or another I'm making a living. So, at the end of the day, that's what matters.
You're doing something right. That's what it says, right?
That's absolutely right.
Now, how has the South Carolina music scene, I mean, that has been growing over the last decade or so. I mentioned before we came on several South Carolina buddies of mine as well. And what's that scene like, and why is it all of a sudden seeing such an influx into the Nashville and into to the country side of things as well?
Well, we've got a good many country artists down here. We've got a ton of great friends that I play with or that I have played with and met. And, there's not like a whole ton of places to play in South Carolina, but there's a fair amount, and I think that's kind of what it comes down to. Of course, when it comes to going to Nashville or any of that stuff, it's more about, you can find a guitar player, or you can find a bass player, you can find whatever you need. For us, I'm very fortunate to have the group of guys that I have that we're all trying to do this full time, and I'm doing it full time, and the rest of them probably feel like they are, but we're trying to get to the point where everybody's playing, we can hit the road and we can get the bus and we can do all that stuff. But, the main thing is, it's just easier to get stuff done, by going somewhere where music is kind of the forefront, and I think that's really kind of why people move that way or move that direction and go that way. But, there's, especially around Myrtle Beach, there's plenty of stuff to do down at the beach. It's a good little tourist spot. So it's not a bad scene around here. It's just, like I said, it's easier to find musicians or other writers, elsewhere. And that's just kind of just like anybody else, I'm assuming that's probably why anybody gravitates towards that area. So yes, sir.
Now, how was it that you put the band together? How did you guys kind of gel together? How did that whole thing form?
Man, it's crazy, man. And it's really cool though, because my drummer Steve was like a rock drummer, right? And he played in a band back in the 90s, like traveled the world. I mean, he played with like Motley Crue and Dave Matthews and Hootie and the Blowfish, and he's got like all this experience. He's also a Marine Corps veteran, so that's also really cool. I met him, and we've been playing together for about 2 years now. Our bass player Franco is an 82nd Airborne guy.
Wow.
So he's an Army guy also, which was really cool. He was a truck driver for the 82nd and jumped out of airplanes. And I told him he can have all that he wants. I like, I like staying in perfectly good airplanes. But so that's a real cool factor. And we have a lead guitar guy that plays with us occasionally. It just depends on what the situation is. But it's kind of like one of those things where you just kind of. Sometimes, bands are like bad relationships and they're very difficult to, hold together. But for the most part, I mean, we got a great chemistry. We really enjoy each other as individuals. And, we're having fun. That's the main thing for me is I believe you can have fun. It doesn't have to be such a job or so difficult. A lot of people make it harder than it has to be. And, I know as far as those guys go, they've got a lot of experience in the music industry. They take it very seriously. I take it very seriously. But at the end of the day, we also like, well, hey, dude, let's have fun. If maybe someone plays the wrong note here, there, or whatever, it's going to happen. And part of overcoming adversity is being able to adjust to those situations. And we handle that really well. I really think we do. So it's just, we got the right mindset. We've just got the right idea. And because of that, I think we've been pretty successful so far.
Now you talked about this being your first release out there. And now that you've got this one out there and you've kind of seen how it moves along, how does this prepare you for future releases and getting out there and hitting the road? I mean, how does all this work together helping you out?
Well, it's the streams definitely help when it comes to booking shows. It's like, well, people are listening to my music, so in the position I'm in right now, I've got a lady that does help me with some booking, but for the most part, I do a vast majority of it. So I don't know if you ever seen the movie Semi Pro with Will Ferrell, but like I'm the player, the owner, and the coach kind of deal.
Yes,
that's kind of how it works out. So, but it's a lot of fun for me because I'm also a business owner and. Like I actually just put myself on a W-2 payroll and I got all that. I've done all the business stuff and, I'm working on those things too. Cause, I worked in sales. There's another thing I did for about 5 years before I started doing this. And I really gained the business sense. So I've had some life experience that's really helped me as far as get to the point that I'm at now. If I wouldn't have been through those different situations, I wouldn't be where I am, and so I understand the business side of things. I understand the sales aspect, and I understand talking to people and dealing with different individuals. Law enforcement helped with that. So see, there's another thing. But yeah, I've gained a lot of valuable skills and whatnot. And so I'm out here, I'm sending emails, I'm making phone calls. I wake up, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning and, I grab my cup of coffee and I take my kids to school and I come back home and it's like, boom, here I am. I'm getting after it and I'm working and my brain just keeps ticking until I go to sleep. So it's eat, breathe, and music. So that's that's pretty much how it goes.
Now, how has it been getting out on the road, seeing the folks face to face? What was it like the first time you got up after the release? I mean, what was it like seeing some folks reacting to the song?
Well, I mean, it was, I called my producer, Ryan, and I was like, Ryan, I said, we had like 1,200 streams on the day. And he was like, man, you did a really good job with the pre-saves. And I was like, I guess I did. I mean, it was crazy. And then I saw that Spotify had put me on that editorial playlist for Texas music, and that's kind of how I really, when he asked me, he's like, well, how do you want this to sound? I said, man, I just love steel guitar. I love the Texas sound. That's really I want the steel guitar and all those traditional aspects, but maybe a little bit newer in a sense, and I feel like we just nailed it right on the head, and apparently they did too. And, I hit that list, and here's this guy from South Carolina on the Texas station, which was really cool. And I've always wanted to get out that way, just because I just enjoy like John Wolfe and Randall King and some of these other guys that I really have been listening to forever. I was like, I just love it, and even the Co Wetzels of the world and those guys. I mean, I could just name them for days. My buddy Joey Greer and my buddy Cody Hibbard, they're both, I'm a fan. I love them as people, and it's fun writing and getting to talk with them, but also, like listening to their music, like I'm a fan of their music. So it's just really cool to be in that same category at the end of the day. But it really has blown my mind kind of how everything's worked out. And I got to, I played a show with John Wolfe a couple month and a half ago or so out in Cedar Park and in Texas. And that was cool. And we're trying to get to Oklahoma and Arkansas and all those other good places too. So that's, we're really looking forward to what's coming our way for sure.
Now, how was a South Carolina boy? How were you turned on to the Texas country scene? How did that get into your headspace, if you will?
Well, that's the great thing about being a musician, and that's the great thing about streaming services. At the end of the day, I know a lot of people get upset about them, but that's how you discover the type of music that you really like. And for me, I think it was a Randy Rogers tune I'd heard or something, and I was like, I kind of like that. And then I heard some Turnpike Troubadours, and I was like, man, really, that's really cool, and I just it was just like I went down this rabbit hole, like TikTok, you start watching videos, next thing you know, 10 hours later, you're like, man, I need to get up. But, it just kind of just rolled into one or another, and that's practically all I listen to anymore. I mean, I just, and you see some independent folks too, which is cool. It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. And if you don't love it, I don't know how you do it, to be honest with you. But it's just, that's kind of how I got involved. I was like, you know what? Yep, that's what I like, and it kind of just matched up to, what kind of artist do I want to be? And those are questions that you ask yourself that are very hard to, they seem like easy questions, but it's really difficult, because you got to think about, how do you want to move forward in your career? It dictates what kind of music you put out, or when you put it out, or how you put it out, or what you do. I mean, there's so many different factors that a lot of people don't consider. But yeah, that's just basically, it was like a rabbit hole. Just I would listen to one, and then I'd hear another one, and then next thing you know, now I've got everybody in my playlist. So.
Now, who's the songwriter that inspires you today? Who's the one that you get inspiration from?
Oh man, like I know so many songwriters. Man, it's hard to narrow down just one of them. And that's the thing, is like I've been in a situation where I've met so many talented guys. I mean, it's kind of wild. But I mean, of course, I draw inspiration from my own ideas and things like that. I'm trying to think of just one in specific. One of my buddies that I write with in Nashville, he's kind of maybe in a sense been, one of my biggest influences as far as where I've done today. But his name is Joey Hollis, and Joey's got a ton of great ideas, and he's written, some ridiculous amount of songs over the past couple years. So I think he's been up in Nashville for a good while now. He came up there with like Ray Fulcher and Cole Swindle, and Ray's actually Ray and Joey were both writers on I'll Be Right Here. It was Ray Fulcher, Joey Hollis, Aaron Ashley, and Davis Branch. Make sure I get that out there. Make sure I include everybody on that. And but yeah, I ended up meeting Joey, talking to him after I recorded this song, and we've really built a great relationship. And he's a very good friend of mine, and great songwriter. And Ray's done pretty good too. You know, he's wrote a couple of them Luke Combs songs and
that
whatnot,
helps, doesn't it?
Yeah. Ray kind of knows what he's doing.
That's funny. Now, Carter, if folks want to find out more about the single, about your upcoming tour dates, upcoming releases, social media, and all that, where's the best place for our listeners to keep up with you, brother?
Well, I mean, of course, you can find me on all your social media space or pages, you know, like MySpace and all that good stuff. But you can also go to www.carterlybrandcountry.com, and it's got pretty much every bit of information that you need to know on there, streaming sources. Of course, we're on Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff. So, or you can just Google the name and I'll pop up. It's a good thing about having a not so familiar name, I guess. You're at the top of the list. So.
There you go. Well, Carter, it has been great to have the chance to get to know you a little bit today. I appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule, and brother, hopefully we can catch up again real soon.
Yes, sir. That's the goal.
I think we can all agree that a few good things came out of the pandemic. Not many, but there were silver linings. Researchers in the UK have put out a new study where they found that 1 in 3 young people between the ages of 8 and 18 say they were happier during the lockdown. Now, these are mostly kids that are under a lot of stress in normal life, so the quarantines and remote learning meant they avoided bullying, felt less lonely, got more sleep and exercise, enriched relationships with family and friends, and their mental health improved while staying at home. This probably doesn't include many kids that thrive in social settings and in group activities like sports, but 1 in 3, that's a huge chunk. Of course, this doesn't mean that we're going back to lockdowns to save the children, but it could provide some insight into how we can give kids a break from the stress they experience and help them find more balance. Always great to have friends back on the show, and we've got the one and only T. Graham Brown with us today. And T, always good to see you, and appreciate you taking the time, brother.
Oh, you're welcome, man. You're welcome.
Now,
good to see you too, Cameron. You're looking good, man.
I've lost a little weight since last time we talked, so life is well, it's trying to do us well, right?
Yeah, man.
Now, T, you've got you mentioned before we came on, you've been staying pretty busy today. And you've got all kinds of projects that are already in the works. And what's it like to have so many irons in the fire right now, if you will?
It's fun. I'm just having time of my life, actually. I'm having more fun I've ever had before, getting to do all this stuff. You know, I'm 67 years old and the pressure's off. I'm not out there chasing a hit, and things are kind of relaxed. You know, we're still out there doing shows. You know, I got a band and a bus and all that hillbilly stuff. Probably do about 80 shows this year, but we pretty much, Sheila and I have been together 43 years, so we pretty much do what we feel like doing. You know, if a show comes in, we want to do it, we'll take it. If not, we'll pass on it. I can do the kind of projects I like. Been down in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, cutting a soul tribute album, bunch of old 60s soul songs. And, you know, I got my show on Sirius XM radio that I enjoy doing. I can do it here from the house. It's not hard. And I get in a movie every now and then and just have fun. You know, I got the greatest job in the world, man. I get to make people happy for a living. So I really am having fun.
And T, in the times that we live in, to what you said right there, letting people have fun, making them smile, making them happy. I mean, at the end of the day, how rewarding is that for you personally?
Well, I think that's what it's all about, you know. I think that's what life's all about. Sheila and I just try to do what we think God wants us to do and put out positive vibrations, and you know, that usually works. It's, I'm like you, man. People are ready to smile, and I'm glad to help make them smile.
Now, tell us about the new album, Bare Bones. Tell us where the idea for this came and how excited you are with that final product as well.
Well, Sheila's been after me to do that forever, Cameron, and it was so easy. I should have done it a long time. It took me a couple of days. I've sung those hits thousands of times, so it was really easy for me. Just me and an acoustic guitar, and then we put background vocals on it. And it's just a different listening experience, than a full studio album is. I think the lyrics more present, the vocals more present, and that's what when I listen to acoustic records, that's what I take away from it. It's just a different listening experience.
Now, what's the recording process like as opposed to other times? Is it also kind of stripped down as well, the recording process?
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, it is very simple and very easy. It's nothing to it. I mean, like I said, it's just a guitar and me, and then we put some background vocals on it. It's very simple.
And Sheila, apparently she knew what she was talking about, huh?
She always knows what she's talking about. She's great, man. Yeah, she knows what she's talking about. And like I said, I should have done it a long time ago. I don't know why I put it off. It just wasn't on my mind, I think. And then she reminded me, hey, we need to go do this. And so I just jumped in there and did it. Like I said, it was really, really easy.
And we talked to Dallas Wayne a couple of days ago as well. And one of the things I asked him is did the radio thing, the XM Sirius thing, did that help keep a little bit of normalcy in your life over the last couple of years? Did that kind of help keep you going and trying to keep whatever normal you could?
Well, Dallas does one, I think. By the way, I love Dallas. I think he has like a show every day that he does. My show is called Live Wire, and I play live cuts from artists' live albums, but I only do one a month, and they air it 8 times during the month. So I pick 6 artists that I like, and I search out live albums from each artist, and sometimes artists will have more than one live album, so I'll try to find the one with the most excitement to it, or maybe the best vocals on it, or the best sound on it, and I do that. And then I always have one friend of mine that I'll interview, and I generally ask people, what was your favorite live album of all time? And, what maybe ask them if they remember their favorite show in their career, or something that maybe the first show they ever saw that really made them want to be in the music business. And then I'll throw an artist in there like, this month I got Richard Young of the Kentucky Headhunters. Mm-hmm. is the guy I'm talking to. And I've got, I think, Don Williams and just a bunch of country artists. And then I picked a couple of songs from America, the band America. And I might throw in Bob Seger or Greg Allman or Steve Miller or Bachman Turner Overdrive or whatever it is I'm wanting to hear, that, or Creedence, something that might conceivably have been country, if it had come out today, maybe. There's a lot of that old classic rock that probably would have passed as country these days,
There's a lot of it.
The Eagles would have probably been a country band, and the Doobie Brothers, I play them, and it just depends, whatever strikes me.
Now, what is it about the live recordings that really jump out to you personally? What is it about the live versions?
I'll just try to put myself at the place that the concert's happening. I always tell the people, like, hey, this was recorded at Wolf Trap on January the 6th, 1972, or whatever it is, And I do that 6 different times during the show. So it's kind of like going from concert to concert. And, you know, it might be live at Billy Bob's, or it can be anywhere, you know, and that's something I've always liked. I kind of let my imagination take me to the place. And, you know, just imagine, like if you're riding down the road in your car and listening to it, you can kind of use your imagination, say, man, I wonder what it was like that night there, or, you know.
Now, for you, when you hear live recordings from your time out on the road, do they take you back? Do they take you back to that time whenever you hear those? Can you almost smell the room, if you will?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, man. It does. And, you know, I've got a couple of live albums. I don't really sit around listening to myself, but sometimes I'll hear something on the radio. They'll play a cut off of it, and I'll remember, you know, where I was. And we got a great live album live at Billy Bob's, and I can remember that night. So, yeah, it'll take me back. But it's like, you know, it was funny you said that you could, you know, asked me if I could smell the room, but it smells, you know, how smells can trigger memories too, you know. So music can really trigger memories, especially if you're listening to stuff that you grew up with, or that you were in high school when it came out, or, you know, in your formative years. That's what'll take me back. That's one of the reasons I really like listening to classic rock and classic country, is I can go back and remember what it was like listening to it on a transistor radio in my bed at night, you know, listening to AM and scrolling through the AM dial at night really slowly. And you'll hit those clear channel stations, you know, you might hit WLAC out of Nashville when they were playing blues, or you might hit a pop station. I used to always listen to this station in Fort Wayne called WOWO would come in, and it would be a pop station. Or you might get Shreveport and hear some hillbilly music. So I listened to a little bit of everything growing up.
Now, for you, the soul album you mentioned, I know that you get to work with Sam Moore, Tanya Tucker, Winona, and more to come. And this one coming out in the fall. And you talk about this taking you back to your roots as well. I mean, how much pride on an album with Sam Moore as well, side by side? How cool is that?
Man, it's real cool. Are you kidding me? The album's going to be called From Memphis to Muscle Shoals. So we cut it at Fame Studios in Muscle Shoals, but we cut about half of it is songs that were cut in Memphis, that old Stack stuff. Or I cut an Al Green song. He's from Memphis, and cut some stuff. About half of it was cut in Muscles. The original hits were cut in Muscles. You know, Percy Sledge. And I got Sam Moore singing. I went down to Miami and recorded him at a place called Criteria Studios down there. And we cut a track. He didn't want to sing soul, man. He wanted to sing something different. So we cut this old song called Who's Making Love. And it's a rocking old soul song. So he's singing on it. Eddie Floyd, the guy that had the original Knock on Wood and that wrote Knock on Wood's already done his. And there's a guy named Little Anthony from Little Anthony and the Imperials. I'm going down to Florida and get him on Tuesday. I went out to Texas to Tanya Tucker's ranch, and we cut her in her living room. She's singing great. And Dwight Yoakam's doing it. And Winona's doing it. Sammy Hagar's already put his part on in California. I was talking to Tritt's manager a while ago. I'm hoping Travis will sing Soul Man with me. I cut Soul Man. I'm hoping to get Hank Jr. on there. Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top's told me a couple of times he wants to do it. So it's turning into a pretty cool deal. I talked to Gladys Knight, and I'm hoping she'll do it. So we'll see how it all shakes out, but we've got some good guests on it.
So for you to be able to put those names down on paper and say that they're with you on this album, they see that vision as well. I mean, what does that say for you and the roads that you've walked and traveled over the expanse of your career so far?
Well, I've had a wonderful career, man. And I never was the biggest star in the world. I had a pretty good run at country radio, in the 80s and 90s. And I've just accumulated a lot of friends over the years. It's a wonderful feeling to be able to pick up the telephone and call somebody and ask them to help you out and them say yes. I did a gospel album a couple of years ago, and I got Leon Russell on it. It was his last thing he ever did. Vince Gill sang a duet with me, a bunch of Southern gospel people. So I'm really lucky and happy, man. I'm 67 years old, and we're just doing what we want to do. Sheila and I are very happy, and we're just tickled to be able to have fun. I'm having more fun now than I've ever had. So
something to be said about that.
It's a joy, man. It's like I was talking to Dwight Yoakam on the phone, and I was telling him about it, and he said, did you cut a Mel and Tim song? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I want to sing on it. So, it was, some people wanted, told me. I didn't even have to ask them. They said, man, let me sing on that. So, yeah, it's turning out great. It's just a throwback. We cut it just like the original tracks were cut. We didn't change the arrangement or fancy it up, anything. It sounds old school, man. When you listen to the tracks, they sound like they were cut in the 60s.
That's cool. And again, that's set to come out in the fall. Look forward to that. And of course, you're still touring, making music. Got the Bare Bones is available. And T, I always want to make sure and let our listeners know if they want to keep up with the upcoming albums, the tour dates, all of that. Where's the best place for our listeners to catch up with you, brother?
Well, you can go to tgrambrown.com and get our schedule. And, if you want to get CDs or anything like that, or stuff with my name on it, you can go there. And then we got a cool Facebook page that we have a buddy of mine that helps us keep up. We try to put stuff up, new stuff every day or two. And we got, like everybody else, we got Instagram and Twitter. We're even rocking with the kids on TikTok, man.
Oh, wow.
We're just trying to stay relevant, trying to keep, we got the best fans in the world, man. They've stuck by me, and I've seen a resurgence, it seems like, in 80s country. We see young faces out there, which is really cool. And we're, like I said, man, we're having the time of our lives. I'm having way more fun than I had when I was having hits, because I was gone so much, and it was just a whirlwind. We did an autobiography. This company called me up and wanted me to do an autobiography, and it was great to have Sheila, because her memory's so good and mine is terrible. And we sat down, and she reminded me of stories and places we'd been and things that I had totally forgotten about. So, that was really cool too. And I've had, like I said, man, I've had a wonderful career, and I'm so thankful for it. I got to work with, I came along at a great time, man, because I got to work with all my heroes and meet them and tour with them, all the one-name people like Willie and Waylon and Merle and George and Tammy and Conway and Loretta and Kenny and Dolly and all those people that a lot of them aren't around anymore. And I was just so blessed to be right there in the middle of all that stuff.
That is right. And like you said, we didn't even mention the autobiography before that. Summer, looking for that to come out in the summer.
That's what they're telling me, yeah.
Again, you can check out everything on his website, tgrambrown.com. Find him on all the socials, even TikTok. He's doing better than I am there. So there you go.
Brother, I appreciate you talking to me.
Well, T, it's always a privilege, and I was one of those. I was coming into my formative years of music and country music when you were making that charge up there. Tell It Like I Used to Be, still one of my all-time favorite songs. So It's always a privilege to visit with you. I'm proud to consider you a friend of the show, and hopefully, brother, we'll catch up again real soon.
Anytime you need me, man. God bless you, Cameron. God bless your listeners, and God bless the United States of America, pal.
Have the things that annoy us about The Office changed in the last 2 years? Because I don't think all of these would have made the top 10 pre-pandemic. A new survey asked people to name the most annoying things that happen at the office, and here's what people said. Number 1, co-workers talking too loudly while you're trying to work. Number 2, people who cough or sneeze without covering their mouth. Number 3, co-workers who come into work even though they're sick. Number 4, slow computers. Number 5, IT issues. Number 6, smelly bathrooms. Number 7, people who leave dirty dishes in the work sink. Number 8, when you're in the bathroom and realize someone didn't wash their hands. Number 9, gross toilet seats or toilet bowls. And number 10, when your computer keeps crashing. Now, a few more that made the top 20 include close talkers, printer issues, brown nosers, smelly lunches, and people who call in sick when you know they're not really sick. It has been a minute since we've had the chance to talk with our good friend, and he is by far the most podcasted on our show. Meathead Goldwyn with us today, and Meathead, always great to see you, and I'm looking forward to talking about some grilling, brother.
Yeah, good talking to you too. It's a little cold and nasty up where I am in the Chicago area, but it hasn't stopped me from firing up the grills and the smokers.
Now, Meathead, we always kind of talk seasonally about each month about different things that folks are going to be able to cook. And I know we've got St. Patrick's Day coming up pretty soon. It's hard to believe how fast the year's already going for us. But corned beef, I know we wanted to talk a little bit about corned beef and also pastrami. And first off, is there a right and wrong way to do corned beef?
Well, I don't like the terms wrong, because I like to say there should be no rules in the kitchen or the bedroom. But there's a better way to cook corned beef than most everybody does it. And I think if you listen carefully here, I can teach you how to make the best corned beef and cabbage that you've ever made. It's a really interesting, historically, it's interesting. It's associated with St. Patrick's Day, but traditionally in Ireland, they didn't make corned beef. They made corned pork. Beef was a bit of a rarity and a delicacy over there. Pork was quite common. And the term corned has nothing to do with corn itself. Corning is a somewhat archaic term for curing, which is another word for treating meat with salt heavily to preserve it. And it goes way back to before refrigeration was common. You slaughtered a steer or a pig, and you had to preserve that meat all through. And pig killing time was usually late in the fall, so that you had the cold weather. You could store it in the barn or in your root cellar, and it was relatively cold. But they almost always treated it with salt. And what salt does is it pulls moisture out of the meat, which makes it inhospitable for bacteria. It also helps change the protein structures. So it's a technique. Now, corning nowadays involves a different type of salt. They use a salt that's called pink salt, and it has a preservative in it called sodium nitrite. And sodium nitrite is what turns bacon pink and hot dogs pink and corned beef pink. It's a preservative, and it's quite common. And there are a lot of people who think it causes cancer, but there's been a lot of conflicting research on this, and I'm not a doctor or a scientist. But I've read enough to make me think that it may be getting falsely accused. But we don't eat that. Hopefully we don't eat hot dogs every day, and we don't eat corned beef every day. One thing, again, I don't like talking about health because I'm not a doctor, but one thing always to keep in mind when you're thinking about whether something is healthy and what you should eat or not is if you live to 80, which is, what most of us are going to make it to, you're going to eat 80,000 meals, 3 meals a day, 365, 80,000 meals. You can have a hot dog every now and then. You can have pastrami every now and then. You can have Cheetos every now and then. They're not going to kill you. So corned beef has this preservative, sodium nitrite, turns it pink, and it's got a lot of salt in it. And one of the first things you want to do is when it comes time to cook it, you want to get as much of the fat off of it because there's a lot of fat on and around it. You want to trim as much of the fat off of it. You want to rinse it. You don't need to use the spices and herbs that come with it because they really can't penetrate the meat. And that's an affectation. But you don't want to boil it. You want to put it in a big pot with lots of water, and you want to submerge it as best you can. And if you have to put a plate on top of it or something to keep it submerged, do that. But you want to weight it down so it's under the water and simmer it, which means 180 to 190 degrees. Boiling's 212. So you want to keep it a little tiny bubbles, but you don't want a big rolling bubble because high temperatures contract muscle fibers and it'll shrink up and it'll get really tough. So you want to keep the temperature low. And this is key. You want to change the water every hour, and you're going to boil it for 3 or 4 hours. And if you have a good digital meat thermometer, you want to get the temperature up to about 205 inside the meat, and that'll take a couple hours. So you got to change the water, and when you do, you'll notice the water is a little foamy and pink, and that's the salt coming out. Mm-hmm. And if you get some of that salt out, not all of it, you'll never get all of it out. And you don't want it all out because that really amplifies flavor. But you'll get the excess salt out, and it really makes a difference. The other thing is if you're putting potatoes and carrots and cabbage in there, you don't put them in at the beginning. They just disintegrate. So you wait till the last hour to put the potatoes and the carrots in there. They're fairly tough, and they'll need at least an hour. And then the cabbage doesn't go in until the last 30 minutes. Because it can really get mushy and disintegrate. So if you change the water a couple of times, keep the temperature down, don't put the carrots in until the last hour and the cabbage the last 30 minutes, you're going to end up with just a really good corned beef and cabbage that's not too salty, that's cooked properly, that's not too tough, and the vegetables, the potatoes, the carrots, and the cabbage are just delicious.
Now, you talked about changing the water each hour. Do you need to watch the temperature of the water you're putting back in? Do you need to be mindful of that?
Well, if you put cold water back in, and it's going to take time to bring it up to temp, it won't affect the quality of the food. But yeah, I would start with hot water. Get it, as hot as your sink can get. Or if you want to start a pot simmering on the side, that might be ideal. But it'll get back up to a simmer fairly quickly, and just keep it down around the simmer. That's a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that before.
I asked because I was like, well, I wanted to know myself. So now
but it's a great tradition.
Yeah.
And now here's a thought. If you want to go to the next level, corned beef is step one in making pastrami. And to make pastrami, all you need to do is take your corned beef, soak it in water for a few hours to pull some of the salt out. You just stick it in the fridge. You don't have to simmer it. Just stick it in the fridge in a pot of water and pull some of the salt out. Overnight, maybe change the water a couple of times. You'll notice the water gets pink. Then you take it and you sprinkle a spice rub on there. And I have the recipe for the classic pastrami rub on AmazingRibs.com. And it's heavy in black pepper and coriander, and it's got a little mustard powder and onion and garlic and a few other things. It's not hard. You should have everything you need in your pantry now. And if not, you'll find it at the grocery. And you cover it fairly heavily with this pastrami rub. and then you either grill it at a low temperature, or if you have a smoker, or you can set up your grill so it can smoke, you smoke it, and you smoke it for a couple of hours until you get a really nice dark bark on it. Then you wrap it in aluminum foil, and you can bring it in now and pop it in the oven, and then you continue to heat it at a fairly low temperature until it comes up to about 205 internal temperature on the meat. And it's really tender. It goes wooba, wooba, wooba when you poke it. And it is just, I think it's the ultimate version of brisket. And that's what corned beef is normally made from, is brisket. And I know anybody who's a barbecue aficionado out there in Oklahoma, Texas, brisket is king. But I got to tell you, in my world, pastrami is the ultimate brisket. And this technique, and I describe it in more detail on AmazingRibs.com, but it's really simple. Just soak the corned beef, pull out a little extra salt, make the rub, smoke it at a low temp, wrap it in foil, bring it up to 205, and it is just bloody awesome.
Now, you talked about the salt that's in the corned beef and in the pastrami as well. And I know we've talked a little bit about salt before, but in seasoning, I know salt is a staple. Do you put it on? Do you put it on while you're cooking every time you cook?
Salt is, and I know a lot of people think salt is dangerous. And again, we keep skirting these health issues that I try to avoid. But your body needs salt. Your body requires salt. Your nervous system operates on salt. All your bodily fluids, your saliva, your blood, your tears, semen, they're all salty. And you don't manufacture salt in your body. You only get salt by consuming it. So you must eat salt. Now, the question is how much is too much? And a lot of doctors ask patients, specifically heart patients, to watch their salt intake. And again, there's more research now that says that, maybe we're a little too nervous about salt. You listen to your doctor, not me. But salt really is an important ingredient in almost all cooking. One of the things that salt does is it amplifies flavor. It turns the dial up to 11. It also helps hold on to moisture. It helps the proteins in the meat retain their moisture. The key is not to get too heavy on it. And the problem that we have with it is if you're one of these people who's too busy to cook and you eat out a lot, then you're probably at risk of getting too much salt in your diet, because restaurants, particularly fast food restaurants, know they can amplify flavor with salt, and they heavily salt things. So if you look at the measurements of sodium in things like chicken nuggets, French fries, they're a pretty good dose there. So, but if you cook for yourself, you can regulate the amount of salt and you can keep it down. But in things like corned beef and any preserved meats like corned beef, bacon, pastrami, Canadian bacon, ham, they're all preserved with salt, and they're loaded with it. And it really is a good technique to soak it to pull some of the excess out. It's easier on the palate. I mean, you eat too much of a cured ham, and you're drinking a gallon of water
right
before bed, and then you're up at 2 a.m, and then you're up at 3 a.m. So get some of that salt out.
Now, whenever you're getting ready to say marinate or get the meat ready for to cook, to put the seasonings on there as well, do you put salt on then, or do you wait till later? Does it dry it out? Is one of those things I've been asked.
That's a really good question. Salt is unique in your spice cabinet. It's 2 atoms, and we've talked about this before, but it's worth repeating because a lot of people don't know about this. It's just sodium and chloride, 2 atoms. And when they get wet, and meat is 75% water, when they get wet on the surface of meat, they get an electrical charge. It's called ionization. and they can penetrate deep into meat. And that's where they do their magic on the proteins, and they help the proteins denature and hold on to moisture. And they also amplify flavor without altering it. Garlic and black pepper amplify but alter the flavor. They change it. But those things, they're too large a molecule to penetrate. They can get into the little tiny cracks and crevices and pores on the surface, but they can't go more than, say, a 16th of an inch into those cracks and crevices. Sugar, for example, is 23 atoms. Salt is just 2. So, I mean, and that's a very basic form of sugar, is 23 atoms. So it just can't penetrate deep. And you think about that. You get your Thanksgiving turkey or a chicken breast that you marinate overnight. And the flavor is strong on the surface. But if you taste the center of it, that flavor is not in the center.
Right.
It's not there unless you've pushed it in there with your knife or you've mopped it around on your plate. If you take a turkey breast or a chicken breast and you marinate it overnight in the strongest flavorings you can think of, and you cook it up and then you take a core sample, you're not going to taste anything in there except turkey or chicken, because it's the seasonings just can't get in. So salt is a really important ingredient. And if you ever watch these cooking shows on TV, they often criticize the competitors that you've under-seasoned it, which is chef talk for you didn't use enough salt. They talk about seasoning. When we talk about seasoning, we're talking about all kinds of spices and herbs. They're talking about salt.
Speaking of seasonings and rubs and all that, I know that your rubs and seasoning and also the barbecue sauce is available now. And tell us what it's like to get the feedback since it's been available to the general public.
Well, we just, I've been hanging around the barbecue world a long time, and I have never made commercial rubs and sauces, because we give recipes for them on AmazingRibs.com. But a lot of people say, I just don't have the time. I'm too lazy. I make up a whole batch of a rub and it sits around for a year, and spices and herbs lose their oomph after months. Why don't you bottle this stuff? And I have never done it because I just did, any good barbecue joint has a good barbecue sauce and they bottle it. Why do I want to compete with your neighborhood barbecue joint and Sweet Baby Ray? But I visited a spice factory, Old World Spices in Kansas City, a couple of years ago. And they came to me and they said, you're so well known that if you brought out some rubs and spices, they'd really sell well. And I'm thinking, oh, my daddy taught me, don't ever leave money on the table. So we went about it and we really worked hard, and we came up with 3 rub recipes, a pork, a poultry, and a red meat rub, and a barbecue sauce. And they came on the market in November, and your samples are on their way. And right now they're only available through our website, and that's because it just takes time for things to get into grocery store, wholesale chain, and hardware stores. They should be showing up in the hardware stores, Ace and Lowe's and Home Depot, sometime in spring. It just takes time for that all to happen. But you can order them through our website, through AmazingRibs.com. They're pretty good. We work really hard on them. They've got some really nice ingredients in them. And, I'm getting a huge feedback on the poultry seasoning. People really love that. And the red meat rub, I'll tell you, all my life, I slapped the wrist of anybody who put anything but salt and pepper on a steak. And this red meat rub, I won't cook a steak without it. My wife won't let me cook a steak without it.
Right.
It's really awesome. So you try some, see what you think. We're really proud of them, and they should be finding their way into the marketplace. But in the meantime, you can get them from AmazingRibs.com.
Now, how many revisions did you have to make before you finally got to each of the rubs?
The rubs took it. All 3 of the rubs took 3 revisions. That was, we sent them the recipe. They sent us back a sample. We send it back with some corrections and changes. They sent it back and more corrections and changes. And it took 3 changes of each. the sauce took 4 iterations to get down pat, and there's a secret ingredient in there. And if you can guess it, it's really the secret ingredient, I think, really puts it over the top. And it's a natural ingredient. It's nothing weird or anything, but it's a flavor that really is nice in a barbecue sauce. We have a 4th rub coming out, a pastrami rub. But it's not out yet. Pastrami is having a moment, I think, on the internet. We published our first recipe 10 years ago, and a lot of bloggers and websites are now, because it's easy to it's easy to go down. Hey, corned beef goes on sale in March, and it freezes well. Go to your grocer and load up on corned beef. Just don't buy what you need for St. Patrick's Day. Load up on corned beef while it's on sale. Throw it in your freezer. It'll freeze. It'll keep really well because it's got a preservative in it. And save it for all through spring and summer, and pull that stuff out and turn it into pastrami. Hey, a Reuben sandwich is typically made with corned beef. You make a Reuben sandwich with pastrami, and you'll never go back. And the pastrami is just awesome. And maybe by then we'll have our pastrami rub on the market.
Now, as we get closer to spring and warmer weather, how often have you been getting out on the balcony still grilling?
Yeah, I have a deck out back, and it's on the verge of collapse. There's so much iron on there. In fact, the boss passed down a obiter dictum to me not long ago. She said, anything comes in, something's got to go out. Otherwise, you're sleeping on the couch. Nothing stops me. I was raised in Central Florida, and but I still go out there in my shirt sleeves all through winter, and it's been cold up here. It's been down in the teens. But, I mean, things just taste better on the grill. That the flame and smoke just really amplify flavor, and it's a pheromone. It's great. It's great stuff. So nothing stops me.
Well, I tell you, we haven't talked a whole lot since our last visit, but we've had some changes in life, and I have actually come across a couple of new grilling and smoking things that we can use to do some of that. And I think I'm going to hit you up to give us some little tips on those in the months to come. So I've got one of those. You're telling me one of those egg ones, one of those egg, smokers. I got one of the a red egg smoker right over here that my father-in-law brought with him. And so I want to talk a little bit about that in a coming episode, and then just some other grilling ideas too.
Absolutely. Let's do a session coming up. I mean, I was coming on every month, but life got in the way the last 2 months. I think I had some issues that kept me from you, and then you had some issues that kept you from me. Thank goodness we're well and we're healthy, and nothing life-threatening, but we're back on the beam, you and I, and hopefully we'll be continuing to talk every month. And let's do one soon on cooking on those eggs, or the kamados, they're called.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're a very specialized and very, very excellent cooking tool that has some real strengths and some real weaknesses. So we'll talk about what they do well and what they don't do well, and what I love and what I hate about them.
That sounds like a plan. Well, Meathead, always want to make sure and let folks know where they can find more information about the rubs, the sauces, all the recipes we talk about, and of course, the book itself.
Yeah, the website's AmazingRibs.com, and the tips and the recipes for corned beef and cabbage, or what is often called New England boiled dinner or jigs, is on AmazingRibs.com. Also, there's recipe for corned beef hash and another number of corned beef variations, and pastrami, all on AmazingRibs.com. And also for a really good background education on the concepts of grilling and smoking, the science of grilling and smoking, my book Meathead is a pretty good reference. It's the #1 best-selling barbecue book in the market right now.
That's good stuff, and for good reason. I will say that as well.
Well, thank you.
Well, Meathead, it has been great to catch back up with you today, brother. Hopefully the intermittency is behind us now.
Yeah, I missed you. It's always good. It sounds like I'm sucking up to you, but you love food, you love cooking, and you always ask great questions, and it's always fun to talk to you. And you give me enough time to get into a subject. I talked to a couple of radio folks, and I got like 6 minutes, and you really can't get far into a topic. So I just really enjoy my time with you, and we've been doing this now for several years. It's fun.
That's good. That's good. Well, Meathead, have a great rest of your February, and look forward to talking again next month, brother.
And good talking to you.
I do want to say thanks for joining us for this 4th episode in Season 3 of Good Questions with Cameron Dole. Of course, if you ever have a comment, a question, or anything else you'd like to know, you can email me, Cameron@gqwithcam.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook at GQWithCam. If you'd like to help out in the funding for this podcast, you can visit our merch store, even available on Instagram and Facebook. And if you have a special guest idea, go ahead and email me, Cameron@gqwithcam.com. Do want to say thanks again to our good friend Brandon Allen for coming up with our theme music, and we're going to let him play us out. Hope you guys have a great rest of your evening.